The failed ceasefire in Syria has caused tensions between the U.S. and Russia to deepen, with the U.S. now quitting the talks with Russia that were meant to help bring an end to the violence in the war-torn country. Joining us now to discuss is Washington Institute for Near East Policy Senior Fellow Andrew Tabler. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
So, Andrew, the U.S. cited Russia's role in the bombardment of Aleppo as the reason to end talks taking place in Geneva. Is that right?
That's correct. Russian aviation with the regime has been hitting the besieged area of East Aleppo for days, while the U.S. and Russia continue to try and talk about an agreement. One part of the agreement was about providing aid and restoring a cessation of hostilities, like a road to a ceasefire, so to speak. The other one was about jointly targeting terrorists. For the Russians, they saw targeting the opposition, which they regard as terrorists, as the priority. The U.S. said that no, the relief to Aleppo had to occur first, and they were unable to resolve this problem.
And White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest had some bleak comments about this, saying on Monday there is nothing more for the United States and Russia to talk about in regard to trying to reach an agreement that would reduce the violence inside of Syria, and that's tragic. Andrew, where does this leave the Obama administration in terms of moving forward toward a solution?
It's going to leave the Obama administration in a situation where 250,000 people are besieged and under bombardment, and a humanitarian disaster is going to get that much worse. It's going to lead to the displacement of people to neighboring countries, such as Turkey, and a rapid worsening of the war. And that is going to have its own effects. Second, it completely lays bare a completely and increasingly vilified U.S. policy in terms of trying to resolve this based on some sort of false assumption that the Russians wanted President Assad to go, when actually they say quite clearly they want him to stay.
So this is tricky. Now, is it likely that the U.S. might explore the option of enlisting allies like Turkey and Saudi Arabia to provide arms to the Syrian rebels in this civil war? Or do you think this could escalate to some sort of indirect military action between the U.S. and Russia?
There's Plan B, which is to provide anti-aircraft weapons and other weapons to the Syrian opposition to fight back against bombardments. There's then Plan C, which is the U.S. Targeting of Syrian regime sites and punishing them for violations of the cessation of hostilities. I expect that we'll probably go with Plan B, which is an extension of the U.S. approach to this over the last few years, and the war will continue.
So you think that fears, because clearly people worry about this, fears of a U.S.-Russian military conflict are unfounded?
Well, no, I think that anytime you have U.S. planes and Russian planes flying around each other without a clear agreement, I think that's dangerous. There is a deconfliction agreement in Syria. I think that will continue. But the chance for a mistake, whether it's in Syria or elsewhere with Russian aviation, is going up. And that can bring the U.S. and Russia to blows, at least in a limited way, before hopefully cooler heads prevail.
All right, Andrew Tabler, thank you so much. Clearly a terrible situation there in Syria. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.